So this is a course on building neural networks in PyTorch. And one thing that I think you'll see that's a little bit different about it is that it teaches you both, the underlying concepts that really allow neural networks to make these interesting predictions and interpret visual, audio, text data. So it teaches you those concepts, but then also shows you how they translate to a professional library like PyTorch. Okay, so by building out a neural network essentially from scratch, you'll then see, okay, this is why PyTorch does things the way it does. And if you decide in the future to go even further into your journey on neural networks, you'll see why they evolved the way they do and why other libraries have to do different twists and accommodate for issues that can come up in neural networks. So to do that, it's really important to both get a fundamental understanding of how they work and also see how this translates into the various tools. So just to give a quick preview of how we'll be doing this, a lot of it is really because we'll be writing out some of the math ourselves in code. And then what's cool about doing something like this in a Google Colab is we can plot the results and see for ourselves what this math looks like, and what it really means. And we'll do this, kind of in a simpler form at first. And then when we move on to more complicated ideas, like multi-parameter gradient descent, we'll see that as well. And to me, I found this really valuable while I was constructing this material, just to confirm that what I was doing really did work. And if I mess something up, trust me, the pictures do not look like this anymore. And you can really get an idea of what's going wrong and hopefully fix it. But of course, all of these concepts, the point is that we can actually do something with it afterwards. And that's what we'll do as well. So, we'll not only go through the underlying concepts, but we'll also use this to build a neural network. So this will be our first baby neural network, but then we'll also build a larger professional grade neural network in PyTorch. All right, so why talk about neural networks to begin with? Well, before neural networks, machine learning algorithms, they do a pretty good job at making predictions on what we call structured data. So what that means is, if you think of a data set maybe you're used to looking at, or maybe you've worked simply in Excel files, or you've just seen a table of data, well, you can look at this stuff on the left perhaps, and maybe make a prediction as to this column on the right. So here we have different columns saying, here's a person that's 30 and are married, and here's how much money they have in their bank account. And based on that, a machine learning algorithm might predict whether or not they have housing, right? And that's something that machine learning algorithms typically were used for. But if you think about the modern web and a lot of sites that you visit nowadays, a lot of the information that we have access to doesn't look like it's in row and column form. Rather, it's text data. And maybe we want to use this text data to predict how the ratings that somebody's going to give a Yelp review. This way, maybe we can change the menu or things like that. Or for instance, this picture, right? Maybe we can use image data to predict an outcome like a Yelp review. Or maybe we just want to summarize some text, like this way we can recommend a book or a page, or help perform some search procedure for the user. What we'll be going into actually is some image data, and this is a pretty classic machine learning problem of getting these different handwritten digits and identifying what number this is. This is something the post office has to do when they read your zip codes. They use a neural network to do this. Or identifying just different articles of clothing. This is another classic machine learning problem. And the material and what we'll be doing will go through both of these different data sets. And this is just a very cool project that you might have heard about, Google Copilot, showing really some of the potential of what machine learning and neural networks might be up to in the future. So here, a user is writing out what they want the code to do. So parse some expenses and return the date, value, and currency. And then Google Copilot is reading those instructions and generating the code to fall in line with that. So that's just to show you some of the power that we can start with, maybe interpreting text, but then go into writing some of our own code and using a neural network to do so. And just to hammer home why people are really intrigued by interpreting unstructured data, it's just because there's so much of it on the web, and that's not going away. If you think of the websites that you use, like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, right? Those are text and images. And if you think about Amazon Echo, well, that's audio, and that's more unstructured data. Think about YouTube, right? That's also audio and video, a series of images. So performing tasks like these, we can't rely on our old technique of machine learning algorithms that perhaps are strong at interpreting our tabular data, because so much of our data that we want to make predictions with is this unstructured data, and for that, neural networks are the most powerful machine learning algorithm to accomplish this. So that's what we'll learn over the next series of lessons, is really how do neural networks work. This will give you an understanding as to things that can go wrong with them. There are limitations of neural networks. If you want to go deeper into the subject, advances going forward. And we'll also be able to learn about the PyTorch library and how the PyTorch library really encapsulates a lot of the ideas behind neural networks, and you can really see those ideas expressed when you implement a neural network in PyTorch. So that's what we'll move on to.